Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out today's episode. Guys, today we're going to be talking about how do you know when you need to make a color change in a lure. Doesn't matter if it's a soft plastic bait or some type of hard bait like a crankbait or a jerk bait. There are clues that the fish give you to tell you that you need to make a color change. And what we're going to do today is we're going to identify, sort of that need to do that and when you need to make a color change in today's episode here. Also, guys, real quick, just want to remind you that Tackle Warehouse got another big shipment in of my Blaukat Power Finesse throwback jig. They've been out for a couple weeks. They sold out. Got them in stock now, guys. Living rubber frog hair. Cannot beat it. Best skirt material that you're ever going to find. Hand-tied living rubber frog hair skirt. We got 3 different colors, 6 different colors, 3 different sizes. So I'll put my Blaukat Power Finesse throwback jig link in the description. Really good bait this time of year. Fish it on 12-pound line. Throw it around any steep rocky bank, riprap, bluffs, anything like that. You'll definitely catch some fish on it. And also, guys, real quick, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me before we get started, just go to my Facebook page, send me a private message on there, and I'll get you the details about coming to Table Rock Lake and going out fishing with me. So I really appreciate that. Okay, when do you know, guys? What's the deal, man? What's the clue on when you need to change lures? Here's the thing about it. There's a couple different things. There's not one answer to this. There's a complexity of issues, and they're based upon 2 different things. They're based upon what the fish want, as far as the preference the fish have, which a lot of times there's no explanation to it, and other times it's based on environmental conditions like light intensity and water clarity and that type of thing. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the environmental conditions, because they're the ones that really, in my opinion, indicate times that you need to change lures. And ultimately, overrides everything, guys. It's what the fish are biting the best. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and sometimes it's sort of unexplained. They bite what they want to bite. But you need some foundational, pieces of advice to start from, and here are what they are. In general, what you have is water clarity and water clarity and sunlight condition or cloud condition or your overall light intensity dictates the best colors. And this changes all the time, because let's say, for example, you're out fishing on your favorite lake and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and you've got a, partly cloudy day, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you got water visibility of 3 feet. And say you're catching them, on a June bug colored worm, something like that. As the sunlight conditions change throughout the course of the day, there's going to be a change also in the light penetration within the water. And those changes can be anything. Let's say, for example, at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's partly cloudy. Maybe you got some shade coming off on certain areas of the bank. Then all of a sudden at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, bluebird sky, sun's right overhead, your light intensity is much greater. Situation like that, a lot of times, instead of that June bug worm you're fishing, you may have to go something a little bit more subtle. You may have to go just like a green pumpkin or a 420 or, watermelon color, something like that, because your light intensity is making everything brighter underneath the water, and they want a little bit more natural looking color. Or you, for example, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, it was partly cloudy, and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm rolls in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's real dark. The light intensity has really dropped a lot, and you're not catching them very good on the June bug. Sometimes they want something even darker. Sometimes they want a black with a chartreuse tail or a black and blue color. So those type of things have a big impact on, color changes throughout the day. And in general, the darker colors are going to be better in your lower light, darker water conditions or dirtier water conditions, and vice versa. The colors that are more translucent, natural colors like your greens and your browns and your watermelons are going to be better, on higher intensity light days or cleaner water. That's pretty much a basic thing. But why that is a given, and that is something that's probably not news to a lot of people, here's one thing that is a lot of news to you. Color change, and when you make a color change, has a lot to do with how the bass is biting the lure, in terms of how the lure is positioned in the fish's mouth when you catch the fish. Now, let's say, for example, you're fishing a jerk bait or a crankbait, and you're fishing maybe just some type of shad pattern. And all of a sudden, you start catching some fish and they're just eating it. They've got, you know, if you got 2 hooks on your crankbait, they got both sets of trebles in the mouth. If you got your jerk bait, they got jerk bait hooks all over their mouth. They got, you know, maybe they bit it by the head of the bait. They got bait, you know, they got hooks all over the place. That's a good indication that you got the right color on. But let's say, for example, maybe the next day you go out and fish and you've been fishing the shad pattern crankbait or jerkbait for all day long. And then you notice maybe there's a tournament going on, or it's a Saturday and there's a lot of fishing pressure on the lake, or maybe there's been some type of conditional weather change. Maybe the wind's dropped a little bit, or the wind's picked up, or your light intensity's changed like that. And you start noticing that the fish are when you're still catching some fish, but you start noticing that instead of having 2 hooks on a crankbait in their mouth, you're getting them by 1 crankbait hook. And on your jerkbait, you start noticing instead of the fish getting on the front hook next to the head, when you catch the fish and you unhook it, they've only got the back hook in their mouth. This is another indication that the fish is telling you that you need to change your lure color. Now, sometimes it can be a combination of your speed of retrieve, like your cadence, but most of the time it's a lure color when something like this happens. And this is when I always make a change. One of the easiest things to do is, if you are getting your fish hooked by the back treble hook about any lure out there, you need to make some type of a lure change. Now, what that is, it could be anything. It could be, if you're using a shad pattern, maybe they want a blackback chartreuse side. Or maybe if you're using a shad pattern, maybe they want a perch pattern or crawdad pattern. Or if you're using a crawdad pattern, maybe they want a shad pattern. So the first thing you want to do is, if you know they're biting a bait, say you're catching them on a jerk bait or a crankbait in one particular color, but they're getting barely hooked on the back, you know the fish are biting that lure and you know there's fish in the area. That's when you want to make a color change and see if they start eating it better. That's a big deal with it. Another little tip that I've talked about before, this is a very important thing to carry in your boat, guys, is a bottle of red fingernail polish. Paint red gills on your baits. I don't care if it's a crankbait or a jerkbait. Red gills painted with fingernail polish is a strike attractor that'll get those fish to bite that bait a little bit closer to the head of the lure. That'll definitely help you out. But a lot of times, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I've been in situations before where it does not make any sense why bass are biting a certain color. In other words, I have caught bass on very bright colored lures in gin clear water on a bright sunny day. And then I've also caught fish on darker days in off-colored water on more natural translucent liquid colors. So it's really what the bass prefer that particular day. But the only way that you can really know for sure, and the only way that you can figure out the best color, is you have to try different colors. And the time that you want to try different colors, and this is important, guys, remember this tip right here, is if you're fishing for fun and you're not in a tournament or something like that, and you're catching a few fish, this is a perfect time to experiment with colors. You know they're biting the bait. You know there's fish in the area. Figure out the best color that they want. Just cycle through 3 or 4. I mean, if you're catching some fish on a black and blue jig or something, this is the time to try different colors. Try brown, try green, try black and chartreuse. Mix up your trailer colors with it until you hit on the one that you think they're biting the best. And that's how you figure out secret colors and colors that you have confidence in. And that's how you maximize the area that you're fishing, is by tweaking that color and just figuring it out what the fish want that particular day. And it changes every day. It's like, just because you catch them on one color one day doesn't mean they're going to bite it the next. So just another reason bass fishing is the most difficult sport on earth. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you catch more few, and we'll talk later.